Okay,
Right.
welcome everyone to the remote commission meeting for the Port of Olympia. Let me start over. Sorry, Aspen. Welcome everyone to the remote commission meeting of March 22nd, 2021. The Port of Olympia is working diligently to address the threat posed by COVID-19 to Thurston County, the state of Washington, and the United States. On March 16, 2020, the Commission adopted Resolution 2020-03 authorizing certain emergency powers in light of the COVID-19 outbreak, including invoking applicable emergency exemptions to meeting notice requirements and location restrictions of the Open Public Meetings Act. Pursuant to that resolution, the Port of Olympia Commission is conducting today's meeting remotely. The Port is following the guidance from the Thurston County Health Department to take all efforts to prevent the spread of this virus and is acting in the interest of the safety and welfare of the public, the community, and our employees to limit its spread. So at this point, I'd like to ask Commissioner Zita, would you like to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance to start out our meeting?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Commissioner. At this point, I'd like to ask for a motion to approve the agenda.
Commissioner, this is
I
Rudy.
want to offer corrections to some of the minutes.
Thank you, Commissioner Zita. Based on your comment, I think we'll get to that when we get to the consent calendar and we can pull the approval of the minutes off of the consent calendar. So perhaps that's your motion to move the approval of the minutes off of the consent calendar.
That sounds fine.
Commissioner, this is Rudy. May I be recognized?
Rudy, go ahead.
Yes, sir. I respectfully request to have the consent item removed from the agenda tonight. There's been some changes with regard to the federal funding and it's no longer needed.
Thank you, Rudy. I'll take your amendment in turn. If you could just wait 1 minute.
Yes, sir.
So the first amendment to the meeting is moving the approval of the minutes off of the consent calendar, and we'll deal with that separately. Is there a second?
I'll second that if you're offering the motion.
No, I'm reading your motion, Commissioner Zita, but I will second it. So it's been moved and seconded that we move the approval of the minutes off of the consent calendar. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? The ayes have it. And so then we'll do that. And then we have a proposed amendment by Rudy Rudolph to move the item 2 of the consent calendar to table that item. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Rudy?
That's fine.
It's been moved to table the second item under the consent calendar. Is there a
Second
second?
that. I'll
Been moved
second.
and seconded. Thank you. All in favor, please say aye.
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 And then I'd like to propose a third amendment to the agenda tonight, and that would be the addition of an item under the action other calendar entitled Merit Pay Increase for Executive Director. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
All in favor, please say aye.
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 So we have 3 amendments to the published agenda. Are there any other amendments to the agenda tonight? Hearing none, let me restate the agenda. The agenda includes 3 amendments. The first is to deal with the approval of minutes separately from the consent calendar. The second is to table the item 2 of the consent calendar. And the third is to add an item under action other calendar called Merit Pay Increase for Executive Director.
Second that.
Move to approve this amended agenda. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. Okay, we have an agenda. Thank you, commissioners. Next on the agenda then, therefore, is the Executive Director report.
Great, thank you, Commissioner. Aspen, if you could take us to the next slide. On Wednesday, March 17th, Congresswoman Marilyn Strickland's local staff came to the port for a visit. We were able to introduce ourselves and our port to her staff, share our port priorities, and give them a tour of some of our facilities. Next slide. I'm pleased to announce that the Port of Olympia has once again been designated as a Thurston Green business. Saving water, conserving energy, reducing waste, and buying or selling green are all sustainable steps that improve the health of our community and environment. In Thurston County, businesses who take one or all of these stewardship areas receive recognition for their efforts. Next slide. Last week, Jenny Folia-Jones and I remotely attended the Washington Economic Development Association, also known as WEDA, Winter Conference. We joined fellow economic development, local government, port business, tribal, education, and community leaders from throughout Washington to learn and engage with expert speakers, legislators, and professionals on the current state of Washington economic development, as well as gained new tools and insights for economic development in Thurston County. Next slide. Jenny and I also remotely attended the Pacific Northwest Waterways Association, also known as PNWA, on their mission to Washington. The PNWA mission to Washington highlights Northwest priorities each year in our nation's capital, and of course, this year we did it remotely. We spent 3 days meeting with agency leaders and the Northwest Congressional Delegation, providing a regional vision for key policy and project priorities. I had the honor and pleasure of speaking about port infrastructure with Senator Marie Cantwell during her session. Next slide. As you may have heard, President Biden signed the $1.9 trillion American Rescue Plan into law recently. Within that bill, there is language to allocate additional funding to airports as we slowly recover from the global health pandemic. The measure includes $608 million to pay for a 100% federal share of the cost for AIP grants awarded in fiscal year 2021. The bill includes $100 million for non-primary commercial services and general aviation airports with 100% federal share. This means that the airport master plan will now be 100% funded with no match required from the port. Next slide. And of course, we are very saddened by the major fire at Tom's Outboard during the early mornings of March 19th. As you know, the owners, Tom and Terry, have been tenants and friends of the port, as well as a staple on the waterfront for many years. The port has reached out to offer support during this difficult time. Next slide. The Port of Olympia will be launching our new website on March 30th. Jenny Folia-Jones will be here to highlight the site at the Port Commission work session on April 5th. In the meantime, I'd like to show the public how to access the Port Commission meetings and work sessions. This view is what you will see when you go to portolympia.com, and you can access the commission meeting remote link information from either the About Us tab, which is up here circled in red, or the drop down in the drop down, or select the commission option. And that's the button again circled in red to the bottom left. Next slide. Once on the commission webpage, you will either scroll down to the Access Remote Meeting section or select the meeting schedule icon button below the image. Next slide. So this is what you get when you scroll down. You'll see the large red remote meeting link button. By selecting this will open the Zoom meeting link. Just below that in the public comment section, you will find an email commission coordinator button. Selecting this will open an email for you to email your public comments or to sign up for public comment at the meeting. Next slide. If you select the meeting schedule icon button, you'll be taken to the meetings section. There you will find a large red remote meeting link button. Selecting this will again open up the Zoom meeting link. So I'm hoping that, I think this is pretty clean. It looks pretty obvious that people will be able to navigate here easily. And as I mentioned, Jenny will be at the April 5th Commission work session to go over more features of the new website, but we definitely wanted it at this meeting to give a preview for people, because at the next meeting, this website will be live. So we didn't want it to be a complete surprise for folks. And next slide. As always, we have several ways for the public to engage with us. Here are some easy ways to contact us, give us feedback, or request a conversation.
Thank you, Executive Director Gibney. Next, we move on to the litigation report.
Hey, Commissioner, this is Heather Burgess, Port Legal Counsel, and I do not have any litigation report for this evening.
Thank you, Heather, for that. Next, we have public comment and commission response. And so I believe we have one person signed up so far for public comment, Mr. David Bonato, and I hope I pronounced your last name right. David, if you're here, please go ahead.
Wow, let's see. Can you guys hear me and see me? Let's see. Gotta learn something new about.
Turn your video on, David, and I think we'll see you.
Okay, give me a second here.
Actually, Commissioner Downing, he won't be able to turn his video on since he's still an attendee, but we can hear you, David.
Okay, great.
Oh, okay, wonderful. So my name is David Bonato, and I am the president of the Supporters of Olympia Community Sailing. We're a group that tries to support youth sailing as well as any sailing opportunities in the Olympia area. And, you know, I submitted written comments last evening, which also included an attachment for a proposal for a small boat center for Olympia. I don't really plan on repeating that content. I'm sure you can peruse it at your at some point. I do want to start out by just sort of thanking the port for engaging the public in the Destination Waterfront Development Plan. I know that there were a couple surprises, not only the idea of a sailing center, but also sort of interest in that OW2 site for a potential sailing center. You know, I just want to mention a couple things. I hope that if a sailing center is considered going forward as part of the development plan, that there's continued engagement with the public and the sailing community on you know, some matters of interest. So certainly that OW2 site does not come without some very interesting challenges, you know, the dilapidated dock and the creosote pilings. We talk about that in our proposal, but also the possibility of expanding a little bit into the marine terminal area to make it a viable area for a sailing center. So we hope that the idea of engaging with us, or we can be continued in that process of sort of learning about dealing with those challenges. And the second thing is exploring some of the possibilities of what the port and a sailing center looks like. We've heard very clearly from the port director and the port staff that the port can't support a nonprofit, but clearly there's relationships between ports and sailing centers in Washington State that we can learn from. Specifically, Shoal Shoal Marina and the Port of Seattle have a small boating center that the public uses. You know, my son is there every other weekend doing some sort of sailing opportunity, as well as other places like the Port of Anacortes, the Anacortes Waterfront Alliance. They have a sailing facility there where they rent from the port a building and some docks. So I just hope that we can continue to be part of the process if a sailing center is considered. And that's it. So thank you for giving me the opportunity to give some comment.
Thank you, Mr. Bonato. At this point, we don't have anybody else signed up for written comment, but I'd like to open it up to the public. anybody on the call tonight like to give public comment at this time?
Commissioner Downing, Carla Wolfsburg has her hand up.
Thank you. Carla Wolfsburg, thank you for joining us. Please go ahead.
Yes, hi, thank you. I would like to find out, I'm a little confused. I was looking at the agenda for tonight, and attached to it are minutes from the February 8th meeting, and I cannot seem to find any minutes for your March 8th meeting. I believe that was the one that's missing. And I just wanted to find out if that is available anywhere. And I would have thought it would have been attached to this agenda since it was the last meeting. So I'm just a little confused about that, and I would hope someone could enlighten me. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Wolfsburg. Is there anybody else that'd like to give public comment tonight? Okay, hearing none, I think we're going to go ahead and move to commission response to the two citizens that gave public comment tonight. Commissioner McGregor.
Am I unmuted? Yes, I am. Thank you. Thank you, both of you, for your comments. Mr. Bonato, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. I think that looking at that site with its creosote pilings and what can happen there over time, I think is a good suggestion and good use of that property. How it all looks and plans out and gets designed will be exciting to see that happen. And so I am very much in favor of seeing something happen there, including, as I mentioned before, another viewing tower so people can actually see what's going on as boats are loaded either loaded with cargo or loaded into the water for sailing opportunities. So thank you for that. Ms. Wolfsburg, it's just the 3/8 meeting minutes aren't up on there because they're not up for approval tonight. They'll probably show up in the first meeting of April. And perhaps the meeting of minutes of tonight will also be there, but it takes about 15 to 20 days to get things through the process and ready for approval. So once they're up there, they'll be put up there for all of us to peruse and see. So thank you for your comments.
Thank you. Commissioner Zita, do you have any comment?
Yes, I want to thank the public for your engagement, Ms. Wolfsburg. Yeah, Commissioner McGregor's right on about the minutes. Mr. Bonato, thank you for your engagement in the planning process about the waterfront and for your advocacy for sailing. Sailing is a great opportunity for recreation, for fun, and for learning science, from marine biology and meteorology to physics. That you're right, that Overwater 2 site is a challenge. There are some dangers there. It'll be expensive to make it safe. And so we'll see how that goes. We do need a good public place for a sailing center. And I hope we can get that done cost effectively and safely. In addition to the challenges that you've identified, of course, the water's not safe to come into contact with, and that is a long-term challenge. So looking forward to working together with concerned citizens like you, advocates for sailing, and for our community.
Thank you, commissioners. I think to the Mr. Bonato and Ms. Wolfsburg, I think my two commissioners have encapsulated my thinking as well. So thank you for showing up and giving testimony tonight. Okay, moving on to the consent calendar. We're going to break it down. The first item is the approval of minutes of February 8th commission meeting, February 16th commission meeting, and February 22nd commission meeting. And Commissioner Zita, would you like to start out? You have something to discuss related to the minutes?
February 22nd looks fine as is. Other commissioners may have suggestions. We'll see. The other two, February 8th and 16, in a number of places, we need to add that commissioners made recommendations. That's the main thing. Also, on February 8th commission meeting, under the Pledge of Allegiance, we should add Commissioner Zeta honored the anniversary of the Bolt decision. Under the Executive Director report, on the same day, commissioners provided comments, questions, and recommendations. Commissioner response to public comment. It says commissioners provided responses. It should say commissioners provided responses, discussion, and recommendations. Under other business, commissioners commented briefly on other business, and made recommendations. And similarly on the February 16th work session, and made recommendations to the economic benefits study, destination waterfront, and upcoming topics and agenda items.
Thank you, Commissioner Zeta. I see that you've suggested several changes to February 8th and February 16. And my question then is, well, since our last commission meeting, we agreed to approve a red line version of the meeting minutes if there are small changes being suggested by commissioners, and we would just look at those red line versions. I didn't see that in the packet. I didn't see a red line version. I just saw. And so I'm wondering, Aspen, I'm wondering if we make a motion to table approval of February 8th and February 16 based on the commission's current thinking about red line versions. And I'd like to table those two until such time as Commissioner Zeta's proposed changes can be seen at red line version. Is there a second?
Second.
Any other discussion?
Commissioner McGregor, you're muted.
That darn button anyway. Okay, thank you for that. Anyway, I would just like, rather than tabling the minutes, I'm going to vote no, but what I was going to suggest is that since Commissioner Zeta has suggested what those changes are, and they're pretty insignificant and not very substantive, just adding in those areas. And I think that from the recording, Aspen can garner that information to add to those areas that have been highlighted, that we just move ahead and approve these subject to the edits as Aspen puts them into the minutes, so we don't keep delaying these minutes on and on and on for publication. We have made a commitment to getting them posted and up there within 30 days or earlier of the anticipated meeting. So I didn't hear anything that was of any substantive matter other than making a few additions of as Commissioner Zeta has eloquated. So I'm going to vote no on this only because I would bring back and just suggest that we have Aspen add those at this point and not get into the red line version loop that we talked about at our meeting. But in any event, that's where I'm coming from. Thank you.
Do you want to offer a friendly amendment, Commissioner McGregor?
Whoops. No, let's vote on this, and then I'll make, if it fails for a lack of majority, then I'll bring up my amendment or my motion.
Okay, thank you, commissioners. It's been moved and seconded to table the meeting minutes of February 8th and February 16th until such time as we can see a red line version for approval. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
No. The noes have it. Commissioner Zeta, would you like to offer another motion? I'll tell you what, I'll make the motion. I make a motion that we accept the February 8th and February 16th meeting minutes with the changes being suggested by Commissioner Zeta tonight, and Aspen can incorporate those and consider them approved.
Second.
Second.
All in
Third.
favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. Next item is the February 22nd meeting minutes. Is there a motion to approve February 22nd meeting minutes?
So moved.
Second,
Second.
all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Next item, thank you, commissioners. Next item is bills and vouchers for February, batches 5 through 8 in the amount of $872,622.45.
Move to approve.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to approve the bills and vouchers, the February batches 5 through 8 in the amount of $872,622.45. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Thank you, commissioners. That takes care of the consent calendar items. Next is the action calendar, and we have the Destination Waterfront Development Vision and Sam Gibney, our own Sam Gibney and Alan Rowe presenting.
Commission. And this is just going to be me presenting tonight. So this is our fourth presentation to the commission regarding the Destination Waterfront Development Vision. And as such, we will not be covering all the work to date in a lot of great detail. Rather, we will focus on the output of this process and how this vision will be used to guide the work of the port going forward. Next slide. This process represents the next step in creating alignment with the Port of Olympia's mission, its strategic plan and goals, community guidance as expressed in Vision 2050, and the reality of the port's capacity, physical constraints, and the marketplace. Next slide. Through the Vision 2050 process, the community made clear that they wanted us to develop the Port Peninsula so that it would be a destination for locals and visitors alike. So we began to gel around the concept of a destination waterfront. We then sought and were awarded a Community Economic Revitalization Board planning grant and began an extensive engagement process. Next slide. This effort has sought and received thousands of pieces of input from a broad spectrum of perspectives. From all of those, we developed a set of guiding principles that focus on balance and honor, sustainability, and community. Next slide. We then also developed an outcome statement to articulate the vision of where we are going. Next slide. Of course, I and all the staff involved in this process, and I know you as commissioners, are grateful to the advisory group members and stakeholders who were interviewed, who once again gave generously of their time, creativity, and wisdom to this process. Next slide. So the first thing we looked at were both the City of Olympia's zoning and other permit requirements, as well as the reality of sea level rise. Next slide. This development, this is a good point to point out what this development vision is and what it is not. This is not a land use plan in that it limits proposed uses to those that are already approved in the City of Olympia's comprehensive plan, zoning regulations, and the shoreline master program. It also proposes uses that are readily encompassed by the port's comprehensive scheme of harbor improvements. Next slide. It also recognizes the reality of sea level rise, the work that has already been accomplished in the partnership with the City of Olympia and LOT, and that any development proposals must effectively account for this reality and incorporate adaptive measures. Next slide. There is great interest in the idea of creating a living shoreline where feasible, and a recognition that measures taken should also seek to protect and restore where possible nearshore habitat. Next slide. So the focus of tonight's presentation is to review the menu of development choices that have been chosen for individual sites. Next slide. As you're familiar with, this is the overall planning area, addressed here in a light purple. Next slide. And I do want to continue to point out that some port-owned downtown properties were not considered as part of this vision or the planning area. We have other obligations on a couple of them, such as the very northern part of the marine terminal and the triangular piece near the railroad tracks. We're also coordinating with LOT regarding their long-term needs downtown. Next slide. Sorry, I lost my notes here. I also want to emphasize that we want to see the destination waterfront development as linking to and complementary of downtown Olympia. We believe that development in the destination waterfront will add to the vibrancy and resiliency of downtown. Next slide. We also wanted to make sure that there were plenty of connections to downtown, and recognizing that not only did we want to create a walkable environment on the peninsula, but show that it was connected by pedestrian and other non-motorized modes of transportation to downtown. Next slide. So this is where we really get into the brass tacks of each site. In each of these slides, it provides a background of information such as the area of the site, the zoning, the allowable lot coverage, etc. It also details a list of potential sites. We do not prescribe a single use for each site, but rather have narrowed the whole list of everything that could be developed on the site to just a few options. It is from these options that staff will continue to develop partnerships and to market the properties. So for example, here on site A, which is the very northern part of the peninsula, you can see it lists the area, the current use, which is parking, office building, and undeveloped, goes through the zones, allowable heights, setbacks, etc. And then with potential uses, we've narrowed down all of the potential uses to just 3: a hotel or mixed use development or a cultural center. This is not to say that we've zeroed in on any one of those. It's also not to say that there won't be something that will come up in the future that might fit here better that we didn't imagine. But it is to say that as we as staff move forward, this is what we're going to be concentrating on. Next slide. So site B, or is often called the Cascade Pole site. It's a site current parking for trailers for the boat ramp. We don't expect any change to this site. It is possible to redevelop this site. It would be expensive to do so. We also think that it would be really impeding some of the very treasured view corridors that the community has. And so we're not proposing any change to this site. We do hope to continue to creatively address some other community uses, such as ongoing drive-in theaters that we're planning on again this summer, but no changes to the actual infrastructure there or really building of any type. Next slide. This is site C. It's mostly around the boat ramp, the bathroom area, most of the parking area for Swantown. Again, not proposing any changes here. Next site, which is site D. The current use is that we have the marina office there. We do have parking, some dry storage, and some undeveloped areas. This is the area that we are looking to place the new administrative building and marina office, as well as should we receive the funding from the state capital budget, we'll be able to incorporate our concept of a marine center into it and be able to be host to a nonprofit in the estuarium. We probably have space for a couple buildings, so we would have the opportunity to look at some other uses even after we develop that use. Next slide. This is the site, what we're proposed for the RV resort. We are proceeding forward with that and working on our permitting processes, and we'll soon begin the civil engineering design phase of this. Next slide. So if this is the current space of Boatworks, and we'll keep that. Next slide. Next slide. Oh, you got it. This is site G, and this is looking for some additional development here for additional storage, perhaps some additional light industrial buildings. It could be that we could put mixed use in here and some parking. Next slide. Site H is really the linear part along the waterfront here. We expect this to remain, keep it in the form of a linear park, perhaps to do some shoreline restoration or other improvements here. Next slide. Site I is currently undeveloped. We are looking for potential uses of mixed use, light industrial. Also, the Hands-On Children's Museum is hoping for expansion on this, and we've been in regular talk with them, so they have very strong interest in this site. Next slide. J is often referred to as the shark fin. It is currently undeveloped. The potential uses are mixed use, light industrial, or also lot expansion, or dry storage for boats. And again, we are in close contact with LOT for their master planning and their long-term needs in the downtown area. Next slide. Site K is currently undeveloped. We're looking at here of mixed use, light industrial, pedestrian amenities, and a maintenance shop. Next slide. Going back out to the very northern tip of the peninsula, this is our overwater structure 1. We expect this structure to remain. Currently, KGY is our tenant, and their lease is up in a couple years, and we don't know whether they're going to stay or not. There's been a lot of interest expressed in having this serve as a cultural center, a museum, or somehow combining some other access to the water. And next slide. And this is overwater structure 2. Its current use is that it's in abandoned. It's in a pretty poor state of disrepair, but it's also generated a lot of excitement. I think this is the one that I've been most surprised by in the process of how much potential people have been able to see in this site. So we certainly look forward in continuing to developing the partnership and seeing what type of uses could go here. We are looking for potential uses of commercial, a boating center, or a cultural center, or some combination thereof. Okay, next site. So what about our next steps? First of all, As we draw this process to a close, I believe that this process has been transparent. It invited and encouraged a diversity of perspective and voices. And I think we've been responsive to public and commission input and flexible in both the process and our thinking. Next slide. I think we can generally say that the input we received has changed our thinking and affected both the outcome and our direction as we move forward. And next slide. Lastly, I think we have helped to ignite some real excitement. I think we can really feel and see what the potential is. I think we can really see that we do have the opportunity to create a destination waterfront. Next slide. So our next steps are we will be moving forward with the existing capital plan of working to develop plans and specifications for the administrative building and marina office. Depending upon our capital budget request, we'll determine some of the parameters of that design. We're also will be moving forward with the design of the RV resort. From there, we really start to look at site-specific development, and that can be everything from pursuing additional site or opportunities such as up at Site A, or to really dive into how can we strengthen and develop our partnerships and what we can join together with nonprofits and other outside entities to see how we might capitalize the rehabilitation of something like the overwater structure too. We're also looking for making sure that we're keen on the eye of innovative implementation and funding strategy, and definitely keeping our eye towards I'd say not quite the promise, but the real hope that there's going to be infrastructure dollars coming out here from the federal government. We're hopeful about that. And if indeed there are, we want to make sure that we're well positioned to apply for to those funding sources. Next slide. Okay, before we get here, I'd like to address the question of I've been very heartened that the commission has really taken to heart the training on parliamentary procedure, and so there's been a question on kind of what's the proper action of the commission. And in particular, Ann McFarland's recommendation that the commission not accept or approve reports. So I'd first like to point out that this is not a report to the commission. This is really a vision that has been developed with a consultant along with the staff and community input. But I also recognize that it straddles a little bit of the operational side of the port, in that we are really looking at doing some nuts and bolts planning here and what our capacities are and what will be guiding us for our marketing efforts and implementing the vision of both the commission and the community. So the motion that I've crafted here, which I'm certainly I want to make clear, is just a recommendation to the commission. I think really seeks to have the commission recognize the community input given to this vision, and then also recognize that staff will be using this vision to move forward in building partnerships, marketing the properties, and developing project proposals, all of which will actually come back to the commission for formal action and consideration at a later date. Next slide. At this point, I'm happy to have myself or other staff members answer questions.
Thank you, Executive Director Gibney, for that summary of the Destination Waterfront Project. At this time, I'd like to ask my fellow commissioners if they have questions or comments of you. Commissioner Zita, please go ahead.
Yeah, could we go back to the cover page for this item, please? where it says background and overview.
Is it in this slideshow or do you mean the cover memo? Sorry.
Yes, the cover memo.
Oh, the cover memo. I don't have that. I gotta go grab it.
Okay. You want to go ahead, Commissioner McGregor?
Sure, could we go to slide 19? I'll just pick one out of there. I didn't notice this before, but I wanted to ask a question about it. So if at some point we can go to slide 19, or if Aspen needs to pull the other one
Aspen.
up first, go ahead.
Sorry, just making sure I'm clear here. So I'm gonna go grab the cover memo before I pull that up. Is that right?
That's fine. That's
Yeah.
fine.
And I just want to, commissioners, I think we had agreed that, I mean, the staff is just really not prepared to go looking for documents in a meeting. So, it's, as you can see, it starts to get really, really disruptive. So,
Yeah, that's a point well taken. You can imagine the packet is put together and the packet is separate from the presentations in a few cases. So yeah, I understand that. Well, while she's doing that, I'm going to go ahead because I don't need any slides, but I'll just make some general comments that, I really do feel like it's an amazing piece of work. I mean, all the participants, all the public, all the staff work, the architecture studio, lots of great work. It really got us to focus on a lot of things about what's going on the North Point Peninsula. So, I think that, there's some people waiting with bated breath, you might say, about, outcomes and so forth. But what I think that and they'll have to wait a little longer probably, but I do want to say that this has lit a fire under this Port Commission and staff in terms of what's possible. I'm going to go down the list. I mean, somebody questioned, well, where did you talk about a hotel? Well, I mean, that's outlined in the slides that this area is open to a hotel. So that means that, we've narrowed it down where one might go, but we're not talking to Red Lion, or we're not talking to Holiday Inn, or you name it, but, we narrowed it down. Question on the RV site. You talk about a civil engineering design, Sam, but we haven't really seen you might say, architectural drawing. So do the drawings come first before the civil engineering design, or vice versa? I don't know. So that's my question.
like a conceptual design, conceptual layout. Yeah. Mhm.
That would come first.
Yes. Mhm.
Oh, I see. Okay. Well, anyway, so, and to the public, we haven't got that far yet with the RV site. So you'll know about it when we get there. A lot depends on whether or not we get the legislature decides to help us with community center building, but we are moving forward, as Sam mentioned, with the planning for the admin building. So that's good. There are many outcomes of this report. One outcome I really like is that we've focused on a piece of land up in the northwest corner called OW2 that most of us, I can speak for myself, I barely knew it existed. So, but yet, and it's been on the back burner, and I've told people that it's been on the back burner, but maybe it should be on the front burner in terms of environmental cleanup now that we've published all these pictures of this dilapidated area. And so I think that, I want to just say that I support, dialogue with the interest groups. We said in our public participation matrix that we take input from the public. So I think that that's, Sam, ongoing, that we want to figure out, what are the hurdles to a sailing center if we go that way. That's just one thing. And they've expressed through their own work, they've narrowed it down. They said, we really like this area. Can we do something with it? So I think there's room for future dialogue, and I think those folks, we want to hear what they have to say and work with them. So, and let's see, one more question. There's a building on the point, out towards the point on the way to Anthony's Hearth Fire, and it's a small one-story building. Is that belong to us? Is that leased out to anybody, or what's that building doing?
That's currently occupied by a tenant.
Oh, it is.
Mhm.
How long is the lease on that one?
I don't know off the
Oh, I
top of
see.
my head.
Well, I was just curious.
Mm.
And then, put another plug in there for food trucks. I mean, you talk about site B and you can't do anything with it. And it's a great viewpoint, whatnot.
Mhm.
I got closed out from the POCAC on that issue, but now I see that Lacey is opening up a food truck emporium right in the center of town, and they're not supporting it with this or that or the other thing. So I think that's, I'll just make my plug for
Mhm.
more usage out of site B. So, okay. Well, anyway, I think it's just great. And I'm happy, happy we've come this far with this project. So at this point, I'll turn it back to, I guess, Aspen or my fellow commissioners. Commissioner Zeta, go ahead.
So, yes, a lot of work, a lot of public involvement. That's all great. Everybody's got their pet project here.
Yeah.
Commissioner Downing's pet project is food truck. And I just want to remind you, the POCAC's concern about that was infrastructure, water, electrical, and so forth. It's not there and it can't be put there because of what lies beneath. And Lacey doesn't have that problem. Aspen, if you're able to show the cover sheet, great. And if you're not, I can just refer to it. I'm glad to see that in the first paragraph on the cover sheet, it says that we aim to the vision says standards for adaptation to sea level rise have been developed. We're talking about the future and implemented, and environmental cleanup and restoration efforts are well underway. That's great to see. There's a little missing piece there. The commissioners have affirmed multiple times in the last couple months our commitment to the Thurston Climate Mitigation Plan. That goes hand in glove with sea level rise adaptation. And I would like to see in this last sentence of the first paragraph, standards for adaptation to sea level rise and mitigation of climate impacts. I'd like to see that in there because they're closely related. We are committed to both, and all our partner agencies are working on both together. Similarly, in the second paragraph, sustainability. Oh no, balance and honor. It's kind of a funny place for it, but the Port of Olympia supports the implementation of the City of Olympia's downtown strategy and Thurston County's climate mitigation plan. We should make specific reference to it there. We have affirmed our commitment to that. The details remain to be worked out thanks to the POCAC who are working out those details, but it would be appropriate to affirm our commitment in this vision. And finally, I have a question under sustainability here in this vision statement. There's reference to addressing the reality of sea level rise and environmental legacies. Yes, we do need to address the reality of sea level rise. Environmental legacies, I think, is a euphemism for legacy pollution. And why use a euphemism? Why not say it like it is, legacy pollution? So anyway, it looks like a good vision, and with those changes.
Thank you, Commissioner Zeta. Commissioner McGregor, any comments?
Yeah, just if we could go to slide 19, Aspen, and it may be another ones, but I just picked up on it. So in that, it says there's a 30-foot setback and a 200-foot setback. And in the description on the right, it says building setback, none. So what is the 200-foot setback? Is that a different type of permit were required if you're outside the 200 setback? I don't understand the delineation there when it says there's none as far as building setback. So could somebody explain that? Just, I didn't
Sure,
notice that
yeah.
before.
The 200-foot setback is the area that is actually regulated by the Shoreline Master Program. So that designates that if you're within that area, then you're subject to the SMP, and it's all its regulations, including you have to fit within their designated uses. The building setback, that is from property line, so or parcel line. So that's different than from setback from the from the ordinary high water mark. So that's
Okay.
you know, both your sideline setbacks and your frontage setbacks.
Sure. And just to answer Commissioner Downing on that building, I believe the building is owned by the tenant, the one you're talking about, and they just lease the land from us on which it sits. So,
Mhm.
and I don't know how long that is, but the building is not ours. So
That
at
is
least
correct.
not at this point. A few years ago, we had obtained a grant to pull a bunch of creosote piling out of our area, and I think it was in cooperation with the city. It might have been had to do with West Bay side of the facility, the peninsula. I'm just not sure, but I'm wondering if, and I understand the reason to leave piling in the water because when you're doing a renovation or a rebuild, the piling that's there, if you're replacing it, that's one thing. But if you're doing a whole brand new build that you have to put new piling in the ground, and there wasn't piling there to begin with, creates another permitting problem. I mean, I know there's some regulations regarding that,
Mhm.
but is there any reason why we couldn't start to apply for permitting or grants that could help us to pull that dead wood that's sitting there, not only the creosote piling, but the decking and all that that's falling into the water, and still maintain the ability to replace that piling once it becomes under development? I'm just asking, just because it seems that the more piling we can get out of the ground that's creosoted, the better off we are. And they're going to be future development there, although we don't know what it's going to be. I assume there will be piling that will be needed, but I just wonder what your concept is on, can we pull piling and still say we're banking that as mitigation for the site or something like that?
Yeah, there is a question as to timing, how long you can maintain that. Or, you know, it's commonly referred to as the overwater credit. That then that becomes kind of somewhat grandfathered in. So there are some requirements on when you take down the structure or pull the pilings, and then when you would have to rebuild. I'm not prepared to talk right off the top of my head of what that timing is, but there are timing requirements. So it would be if you were seeking to replace that structure, which I think that we've heard a lot of support from the community and interest from the community in replacing that with something that is functioning. Then we want to make sure that we maintain the credit for that overwater structure.
Okay, I just wondered if there was
Yeah.
a timeline or whatever.
Yep.
So thank you for that. Well, I'm excited about the plan. I'm excited for the input we've gotten from the citizens of this community. I think they've brought up some interesting things that have piqued their interest. And as Commissioner Downing says, there's no guarantee that this is all going to happen in the immediate future, but it certainly is a road pathway to bringing destination waterfront to reality in our community. And there's lots of opportunities here, and I'm excited to see where it goes in the future. And hopefully it moves along at a speed of business. Can I say that? But anyway, because I think there's a lot of anticipation. But anyway, I think it's a good plan, and I appreciate Thomas Architect Studios for doing the whole thing, coordinating it, and bringing people together. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner McGregor and Commissioner Zeta. So at this point, we have, can we bring that slide back up where we, a potential motion, please? Thank you. I don't think I need to say more about this sample motion because a lot has been said and we've all been privy and a part of this process over these past 3 or 4 months. And so do I have a fellow commissioner that'd like to make a motion?
I would first like to move that the amendments that I propose to the actual vision statement be considered by the commission.
So it's been moved to incorporate Commissioner Zeta's suggestions to the actual mission statement for this project. Is there a second?
I'll second
second.
that.
Okay. It's been moved and seconded. Is there discussion? I have a little something to say, and that is that Commissioner Zeta, I'm going to hold fast on the work of the port staff, and I believe they brought this project forward in 100% good faith and hard work. And so I don't want to in any way, I guess I would say, fine tune the presentation, because it's a presentation and this motion before us is our statement of support for the work of the staff and the input of the public. So, I think that's where we should go with it. So
Discussion?
go ahead, please.
So I agree with you that about the staff's hard work and good faith. Since we are poised to consider endorsing this vision, I think it is incumbent upon the commission to be sure that we agree with the vision. And it's a great first draft. The only thing that's missing is climate mitigation. Sea level rise is in there, environmental cleanup is in there, and that's terrific. It's just a minor oversight that climate mitigation was omitted. That's something that all 3 commissioners have agreed we're behind. So just get that in there. It goes right hand in hand with sea level rise.
Thank you, Commissioner Zeta. I'm being quiet because I'm thinking. So it's been moved and seconded that we incorporate the edits that Commissioner Zeta spoke of a few minutes ago into the mission statement for this project. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? Nay. Motion passes. Thank you, commissioners, for that input. And Sam, if you could incorporate those edits, that would be great. So moving on to this motion before us, do I have a motion?
I will move that the commission acknowledge the community input given to this vision for the development of a destination waterfront and recognize that staff will use this vision to continue to build partnerships, market port properties, and develop project proposals for commission consideration.
Thank you, Commissioner. Is there a second? I second. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Motion passes. Thank you, commissioners, and thank you once again, Executive Director Givney and all the port staff that worked on this. Really. Next item then is under the action calendar other, and it's called merit pay increase for Executive Director. For the benefit of the public, I will say that the commissioners, we've got our executive director, and once a year, the executive director as well as all port staff come up for potential merit increases. And because the commission has 1 employee, which is the executive director, we have the privilege of discussing a merit pay increase for her. And I'll get right to the point. I move that the commission approve a 3% merit pay increase for the executive director for the year 2020 and effective retroactively on January 1, 2021. Is there a second?
Second,
There, discussion? All in
Yeah.
favor, please say aye.
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 Motion passes. Thank you, commissioners, and thank you, Sam, for your service very much. Okay, moving on to the advisory calendar. Public Works Contract 2021-1011 miscellaneous electrical work, and Rudy Rudolph and Todd, our own Rudy Rudolph and our own Todd Nestegard presenting.
Could I have a point of order, Commissioner? What we did, we should have had public comment before we took the action, and I missed it completely. So sorry about that. I would have pointed that out.
Thank you, Commissioner. I do seem to get tripped up on that when it gets later in the agenda. So my apologies to the public. Is there any public comment on the action other calendar item merit pay increase for executive director?
Commissioner Downing, we have Carla Wolfsberg with her hand up.
Ms. Wolfsberg, welcome. You have the floor.
I'm sorry, it wasn't about that I wanted to speak, so I retract my time here. It was about Destination Waterfront. I have a question.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Wolfsberg. Unfortunately, we're not taking public comment on the Destination Waterfront vision, but I'm sure that an email to Aspen and you can get your question answered that way, I'm sure. Thank you. So hearing no public comment, we're done with that action
Commissioner
other
Downing?
calendar item. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
We have Melissa Denton with her hand up now.
Oh, excuse me. Okay, very well. Ms. Denton, you have the floor. Welcome.
I just want to point out that I'm so grateful on behalf of the public for the wonderful work that Director Gibney has performed. I was so relieved when she came on board, and I'm so happy and grateful for her hard work and the wonderful work of our port staff. I just want to say thank you, and I am very glad that the pay raises has happened and is recognizing her hard work. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Denton. Commissioners, do you have any comment on the public comment we just heard from Ms. Denton?
I have none.
I do not either. Thank you, Ms. Denton, for speaking to us tonight. At this point, moving on to the advisory calendar, and Todd Nestegard and Rudy Rudolph, you have the floor.
Thank you, Commissioners. I'm here tonight to brief the Commission on an on-call contract for electrical services that we're going to ask you later to authorize. Next slide. Just a bit of background on the contract. Request for proposals was issued February 18th of this year. Proposals were received March 4th with only one firm responding. Next slide. The responding firm was MB Electric, a local firm, well established, good record. The previous contract holder was Travers Electric, another local well-named, well-performing company. They decided not to bid on the contract. Next slide. General provisions in the scope of the services for this contract. It's a multi-year contract, so 2 years with 2 option years to exercise if we decide. Contract does not exceed $300,000. It is for unforeseen electrical services and specialized commercial electrical services that don't exist within the port's current staffing. Next slide. Sample motion, move to authorize the executive director to execute the contract with MB Electric for on-call miscellaneous electrical services for the amount not to exceed $300,000 and not to exceed 2 years ending April 30th, 2023. If the commission has any questions?
Thanks, Todd. Commissioner McGregor or Zeta, do you have any questions of Todd at this time?
I just have a couple of comments and a question. Todd, you mentioned that the existing contract will be not to exceed 2 years, yet they have the option to renew for 1-year extensions, or what?
Yes,
what is that?
Commissioner.
So,
The port has the option of extending, the contractor has the option of accepting the extension, 2 one-year contract extensions.
okay. And so I just want to make clear that while it's an amount not to exceed 300,000, it's not that we're planning to spend that much. It's just an on-call in case we have an emergency. Port staff is not able to make a repair because of their might be over their ability to pull line or do some kind of a repair to a generator or something like that. Then the electrical company, who has electricians that are permitted by the state through L&I and all that, then can come in and do the work so that we have coverage in the event of an emergency or any kind of a, I don't want to use the term shortage. That's kind of a pun on electrical, but in any event, it's not that we're going to spend it. We're just allocating that much in anticipation of something may go wrong, and we just need to have the coverage to take care of that expeditiously. Thank you.
Yes, Commissioner. To give you an example of the prior contract was out for 4 years, 2 years with the 2 options were exercised. We spent $104,000 total over that period of the contract. So there's no expectation to go to anywhere close to 300. It's just capacity.
Thank you.
Commissioner Zeta, please go ahead.
So, Mr. Nestegard, you probably told us this, and I'm sorry if I missed it. Has MB Electric been on contract with the port already?
No, Commissioner.
Okay. And we only got 1 bid for this, huh?
Yes, Commissioner.
We only got 1 bid for the web redesign too. That seems a little surprising. It seems like people would want the work, but I guess it was only advertised for a couple of weeks, right?
Yes, Commissioner. It was out for at least 2 weeks.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Thanks, Todd. I don't have any questions. My fellow commissioners mentioned what I was interested in. So at this time, I'd like to move to authorize the executive director to execute the contract with MB Electric LLC for on-call miscellaneous electrical services for an amount not to exceed $300,000 and not to exceed 2 years ending April 30th, 2023.
Commissioner, if I could interrupt you again, point of order, that this is an advisory calendar item. Staff will be bringing it back to us perhaps at the next regularly scheduled meeting for approval. And what we need to do is take public comment on this one, and then staff will probably bring it back to us on April 8th, I think is the next meeting.
Thank you, Commissioner McGregor, for that correction. I stand corrected. But this time, I'd like to ask if there's any public comment on advisory items, this advisory item.
Commissioner Downing, we have Richard Wolf with his hand up.
Great. Hi, Mr. Wolf. You have the floor.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. Just a couple questions. Is there a provision in this contract? I'm trying to understand why we have to contract. Is there a provision in this contract that requires a specific time response, or during an emergency or during a request? What's the advantage of doing this contract versus just hiring as you need them, electricians on the outside? And then the other question I had is, if it exceeds $300,000 during the 2-year contract period, what does the port do? Do they come back and ask for more money? Or is it limited to that over the 2-year period, or what?
I'll take those questions, Commissioners.
Thank you, Mr. Wolf, for that public comment. Before you respond, Todd, I'd like to get public comment out of the way and put you under commission response. Thank you for offering, Todd. At this time, is there any other public comment on this advisory calendar item? Okay, hearing none, if my fellow commissioners are okay, can we yield the floor to Todd at this time? Go ahead, Todd.
Thank you, Commissioner. Yes, Mr. Wolf, there is a time component to the contract. When acted upon, the contractor has to respond immediately to the work assigned. It provides services in the time period that it would normally take us to go out for a separate contract, which is usually 2 to 4 weeks, for that 2 to 4 week period of work that we need done in an emergency. And towards the exceeding 300,000, we cannot exceed the 300,000 without executive director and commission approval. So there's, in the history of past contracts, we don't get anywhere close to the 300,000 for the value of the contract. I hope that answers your questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Todd. Thank you, Todd. Commissioners Zeta or McGregor, do you have any response to public comment?
No, I'm fine. Thank you. Good questions.
Yep, thank you, Mr. Wolf, for bringing that up.
Thank you, Mr. Wolf. That takes care of public comment on advisory items and commission response. At this time in the meeting, we're going to move to any other business, commissioners?
I have none.
Thank you. I skipped, I'm sorry, I'm really rough tonight. I skipped commission reports and discussion. Anybody like to give a report on your activities the past couple of weeks?
It's been limited for me, so I don't have much.
Okay, good. How about you, Commissioner Zeta?
Let's see. I had the honor of meeting with Squaxin Island Tribal Chair Chris Peters, and also met with Capital Lake Deschutes Estuary Funding and Work Group, small meeting discussing possible funding, and we will bring details to the commission when they're ready.
Great, thank you, Commissioner. I have not much to report other than the VCB Executive Committee. We're still searching for a new executive director, and the interview process goes onward. So 2 new candidates showed up, and so we're expanding the search just a little bit as that goes forward. Okay, if there's nothing else tonight, I'd like to go to meeting announcements. And our upcoming meetings are as follows. We're already into April 5th, 2:30 commission work session. April 12th at 5:30 commission meeting. April 19th is our Economic Development Corporation meeting, and that's open to the public as well. April 19th, the same day at 2:30 p.m. commission work session. Then on April 20th is the Citizen Advisory Committee meeting, which the public may attend and commissioners may attend, but they typically don't talk because it's not a commission meeting per se. So I want to thank everybody for their participation tonight. Great meeting. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Commissioner Zeta is talking, but her mute is
Commissioner
on.
Zeta, is that a second?
I just wanted to see those meeting announcements for one more minute, please. Sorry.
Oh, great.
Thank you.
Great. Okay. Let's see. Commissioner McGregor moved to adjourn the meeting. Is there a second?
Second,
All in favor, please say aye.
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 We're adjourned. Thank you, everybody. Good night.
Thank you.